Another thing that we definitely teach on offense is every time you catch the ball, you want to be in triple threat. Triple threat just stands for, in this position you're able to shoot, you're able to pass, and you're able to dribble. So in that order, number one priority is shoot, number two order is pass, and then the last priority is dribble. So a triple threat stance is you want to get an athletic stance, but in the triple threat stance, you want your feet to be, a little bit past shoulder width apart, and you want, if I'm right-handed, I want left foot pivot foot, and I want right foot in front. And Lidal, I know that you teach it a little bit differently. You teach triple threat based on whatever side of the floor you're on, which is totally fine. I think you can teach it either way. I think you can teach it both ways if you want. But for me, the way I always teach is, if I'm right-handed, my left foot is always the pivot foot, and my right foot's always in front. If I'm left-handed, it's the opposite. My right foot is my pivot, and my left foot's always in front. So in the triple threat position, if I'm right-handed, my left foot is the pivot foot, the ball is in my left hip, my right foot is out in front, and it's the same thing as like a shooting stance. Basically, my left toe will, if you draw a straight line, it will cross through the middle of my right foot. And then I get in a position, athletic position, I keep my eyes up, and I think about shooting first, and then I think about passing, and then I think about dribbling. And from there, you can do a series of moves. You can do jab, steps, you can do all different types of moves out of triple threat. When I catch it in triple threat, my first thing I do right away is I look at the basket. Once I catch the ball, if I'm passing it, I catch the ball, I turn and look, and if I'm open, I should shoot it. If there's someone underneath the basket to pass for a layup, I should pass it, and then my last resort is dribble. Out of triple threat, if I'm gonna dribble the ball, we'll teach shooting. We'll teach shooting in a little bit. We've already taught passing. So to dribble out of triple threat, I normally teach 3 basic moves. The very first one is you're in triple threat and you just drive. That's the first one. The second one is a jab to a drive in the opposite direction. And then the very last one is, in English, it's called a rocker. But you basically jab in one direction, you rock back, and then you go in that same direction. So the very first one is just a normal drive. So if I'm in triple threat and I'm right-handed and I do the first move, I would drive to my right. If I'm left-handed, I would drive to my left. The most basic thing about driving is you always aim at the person's shoulder. The person who's guarding you, you always drive at one of their shoulders. You never try to drive around them. You don't want to drive into their chest either. So you're always aiming to hit his shoulder with your shoulder. Let's say, for example, if I drive at my defender's shoulder, I put my shoulder into his shoulder. If he fouls me, or if I put my shoulder into his shoulder and we collide, that's a blocking foul on him. The other option that he has is if my shoulder is about to hit his shoulder, the other option is he can turn and let me go. And that's usually how you drive by people. It's very, very important that when you teach kids how to drive, the number one thing you gotta teach them is to drive and try to hit your shoulder with their shoulder. If you hit them in the chest, it's gonna be a charge, it's gonna be a foul on you. If you try to drive all the way around, that's too slow, and against good defenders, it won't work. The second move is a jab. When I jab, it's important that I jab at the defender's shoulder and at a 45-degree angle. So if I jab at their shoulder going at a 45-degree angle, once I jab, the ball does not extend out. The ball stays just in front of me a little bit. My head stays directly between my two shoulders, and my shoulders stay inside of my feet. My shoulders don't go outside of my feet. If I'm gonna lean, I'm gonna lean with my feet and my entire body, but I'm not gonna only lean with the top part of my body. Once I make that jab in a 45-degree angle in one direction, I'm gonna take that same foot, keeping my pivot foot on the ground, I'm gonna cross over in the other direction at the other 45-degree angle, driving at his other shoulder. The last move is the rocker. It's the same thing. You do the first jab step. Once you jab, you move back a little bit, you move your entire body back on your back leg, but you don't stand up. It's important that you don't stand up. So you make your jab, and as you're rocking back, you rock back half of the distance, and then once you go from there, then you go again and you drive at their shoulder. So if I'm right-handed, I make the jab, I rock back, and then I have to lift my right foot up again. My pivot foot, which is my left foot, has to stay on the ground the entire time, otherwise it's a travel.